The challenge unveiled. The CSS Horizon cut silently through the darkness of deep space, its sleek hull reflecting distant starlight. Inside the command center, Commander Maya Chen studied the holographic star chart hovering before her, the blue light casting shadows across her features. 6 months into their exploration mission, the Horizon carried the first truly interspecies crew in Earth's space program history, a fact that brought both pride and constant challenges. "Commander, we're receiving a distress signal," announced Lieutenant Krell, his scaled fingers moving with surprising delicacy across the communications panel. The Draxian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of concern among his species. Maya straightened. Source: unknown vessel. Signals weak but consistent. Coming from the Veritas Nebula, approximately 3 light hours from our position. She nodded, decision already made. Plot and intercept course. Alert medical to prepare for potential casualties. As the crew responded to her orders, Maya felt a familiar tension settle between her shoulders. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Confederation for 15 years, still newcomers by most standards. Every action she took as commander was scrutinized, evaluated against centuries of established protocol. The Horizon's mission was as much diplomatic as exploratory. "Commander, may I offer an observation?" The voice came from Science Officer Tilara, the Meridian representative whose crystalline exoskeleton caught the light as she turned. "The Veritas sector contains no registered outposts or travel routes. It is considered hazardous due to electromagnetic anomalies." "Your point, officer?" Maya asked. "The statistical probability of a legitimate distress signal from that region is low. It may be prudent to send an automated probe rather than divert our vessel." Maya considered this briefly. "Noted, but if someone's in trouble out there, they don't have time for us to debate probabilities. We investigate personally." Talara's antennae twitched. Disagreement, but she inclined her head in acceptance. Not for the first time, Maya sensed the unspoken assessment. Humans, always making decisions based on emotion rather than logic. The journey to the coordinates took 17 hours, during which Maya briefed her senior staff. Besides Krell and Tilara, there was Chief Engineer Volox, a burly Kinteran whose thick fur concealed a network of sensory organs more precise than any human instrument. Dr. Nima, the equilid physician whose translucent skin revealed the complex circulatory system beneath, and Security Chief Resnick, the only other human aboard. "Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1, announced the navigator, a young Solarian named Pell, whose bioluminescent patterns pulsed with concentration. The view screen adjusted to show what awaited them: a massive structure, clearly artificial, surrounded by debris. It appeared to be some kind of station, its architecture unlike anything in Confederation records. Portions of it were dark, others pulsed with intermittent energy. "Life signs?" Maya asked. Krell worked his console. "Difficult to determine. The station's whole composition is interfering with our scans, but there appears to be a habitable environment inside." "Commander," Tilara interjected, "the technology exhibits characteristics consistent with Arcovian design principles." A ripple of tension moved through the bridge. The Arcovians were among the oldest species in the known galaxy, reclusive and advanced beyond most others' comprehension. They rarely engaged with younger races, considering them barely evolved. "Are they hostile?" asked Resnick, hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "Unknown," Tilara replied. "There are no recorded instances of Arcovian aggression, but equally few instances of direct contact." As they watched, a section of the station illuminated, and a docking bay became visible. "An invitation," Volox rumbled, his universal translator only partially capturing the gravelly undertones of his native speech. "Or a trap," Resnick countered. Maya studied the structure, weighing options. Standard protocol would call for extensive remote scanning, perhaps weeks of observation before attempting contact. "The distress signal continues, Commander," Krell reported. "It's coming from inside." Maya nodded. Prep a shuttle. I'll lead the away team. Resnick, Tilara, Volox, and Dr. Nema with me. Lieutenant Krell, you have the bridge. Commander, Tilara began. Confederation Protocol for First Contact with Advanced Civilizations clearly states, "This isn't first contact, officer. It's a rescue mission." Maya interrupted. "And last I checked, ignoring distress calls isn't in anyone's protocol." The shuttle journey was brief but tense. As they approached the docking bay, massive doors slid open with ancient precision. The bay itself was cavernous, designed for vessels many times their size. They landed without incident, the shuttle systems reporting breathable atmosphere and stable gravity. "Full environmental suits until we confirm conditions," Maya ordered as they prepared to disembark. "Stay together, weapons ready but not aggressive." They stepped onto the station's deck, the material beneath their feet seemingly fluid yet solid, adjusting subtly to their weight. The space was dimly lit by strips of blue-green illumination that pulsed in patterns suggesting language or code. "Remarkable engineering," Volox murmured, his specialized visor analyzing the surrounding structure. "The entire station appears to be composed of programmable matter." Tilara moved forward, her scanner detecting energy signatures. "The distress signal originates 3 levels below our current position." They located what appeared to be a transport tube, though it bore little resemblance to Confederation designs. When they approached, the floor beneath them liquefied and reformed, creating a descending platform that carried them downward with stunning smoothness. The chamber they entered was vast and circular, its walls lined with what looked like hibernation pods. Most were empty, but 3 contained humanoid figures, suspended in some form of stasis. In the center of the room stood a pedestal emitting the pulsing light they'd seen throughout the station. "The signal originates from this console," Tilara announced, approaching it cautiously. As she reached toward it, the light flared brilliantly. The team shielded their eyes, and when the glare subsided, a figure stood before them, or rather, the projection of a figure. It was tall and slender, with features that seemed to shift and change, as if unwilling to settle on a single form. "Visitors," it said, its voice resonating not through the air, but directly in their minds. "You have responded to our call." Maya stepped forward. "I am Commander Maya Chen of the CSS Horizon. We received your distress signal." "Yes. The test begins." The figure gestured toward the occupied stasis pods. "These are the last of my kind on this outpost. We have studied your Confederation from afar. Before we entrust ourselves to your care, we must evaluate your capabilities." "Test." Resnick tensed. "We came to rescue you, not take an exam." The projection's features rippled in what might have been amusement. "Your rescue is conditional upon demonstration of worthiness. The challenges will assess your species' adaptability, intelligence, and moral framework. And if we refuse," Maya asked, "then you are free to leave. We will continue our wait for others." Maya exchanged glances with her team. The diplomatic implications were enormous. First, meaningful contact with the Arcovians could advance Confederation science by centuries. But she didn't like being manipulated. What exactly does this test entail? 3 trials: survival, innovation, ethics. Complete them, and we will join your vessel and share knowledge that will benefit all your peoples. Fail, and we remain in stasis. And the distress signal, was that just bait? The projection flickered. It was expedient. "Our need is real, Commander. Our power systems are failing. In 30 of your standard hours, this station will lose life support. We will perish without assistance." Maya considered their options. This wasn't what they'd expected, but the potential benefits, and the lives at stake, made the decision clear. "We accept your challenge." The projection nodded. "The first trial begins immediately. You will be transported to the surface of the moon below. There you must survive for 1 planetary rotation, using only the natural resources available, and what you carry now. You will find the environment challenging. Before Maya could respond, the floor beneath them dissolved. There was a moment of disorientation, and then they were somewhere else entirely, standing on rocky terrain under a violet sky, the massive station visible as a distant point of light above them. "Well," said Volox, looking around at the barren landscape stretching in all directions, "it appears our diplomatic mission has become a camping trip." Maya removed her helmet after confirming the atmosphere was breathable, if thin. "Spread out. Take inventory of what we have and scout the immediate area. Let's find water and shelter before the local sun sets." As her team moved to comply, she studied the alien landscape. The Arcovians wanted to test their worthiness. Fine. She hadn't climbed from refugee camp to starship commander by backing down from challenges. "Let's show them what humans, and our allies, can do," she murmured, already formulating a plan as the first of 3 suns began to sink toward the horizon. The hostile environment. The violet sky darkened rapidly as the first sun disappeared behind jagged mountains. Almost immediately, the temperature plummeted. Maya washed her breath cloud before her face as Tilara approached with her environmental readings. "Commander, this moon has a highly eccentric rotation pattern. During the triple sunset we are experiencing, surface temperatures will drop to approximately -70 degrees Celsius. Without shelter and heat, we cannot survive the night." Maya nodded, unsurprised by the severity of their situation. "What about local resources?" "Limited. The terrain appears predominantly silicate-based. There is minimal vegetation, though I detected possible liquid water 2 kilometers east." Tilara's crystalline features reflected the light of the remaining suns. "I should note that my species evolved in cold environments. I can withstand lower temperatures than most of you." "Good to know," Maya replied. "But we stay together." Resnick returned from his security sweep, his expression grim. "Area seems clear of immediate threats, but I found something strange." He held out his hand, displaying what appeared to be a small metallic cube. "There are dozens of these scattered around. They're not natural formations." Volox took the cube, his sensitive fingers tracing its surface. "Interesting. It contains a complex circuitry pattern, but it's currently inert. The Arcovians mentioned we be tested on survival and innovation," Maya observed. "I'm guessing these are part of that test." Dr. Nima approached, his translucent form shimmering with anxiety. "Commander, without adequate thermal protection, the human and Kintaran physiology will begin to fail within hours of full darkness." Maya assessed their situation. Standard Confederation away team gear included emergency thermal blankets, ration packs, communication devices, and basic medical supplies. But these would only delay the inevitable in such extreme conditions. "Volox, can you determine the purpose of these cubes?" The chief engineer turned the object over in his hands. "I believe they're power cells, Commander. Sophisticated ones, but they require activation." "Any ideas how?" "Several, but without proper tools." Maya scanned the barren landscape, her mind racing. The second sun had now dipped below the horizon, and the temperature continued to drop precipitously. "We need to find shelter and build a heat source. Now." They moved eastward, toward the water Tilara had detected. The terrain became increasingly rugged, with deep crevices cutting through the rocky ground. Maya noticed that more of the metallic cubes appeared as they progressed, some partially embedded in the stone. "Commander, look," called Resnick, pointing ahead. A formation of rock jutted from the ground, creating a natural overhang. Not quite a cave, but better than nothing. Beneath it, the ground leveled into a smooth depression. "It'll do," Maya decided. "Tilara, continue toward the water source with Nima. Resnick, collect as many of those cubes as you can find. Volox, we need a heat source." As her team dispersed to their tasks, Maya examined the shelter more closely. The overhang would provide minimal protection from the increasingly bitter wind, but the rock itself seemed to retain some warmth from the day. She unfolded her emergency thermal blanket, considering how to maximize its effectiveness. Tilara and Nema returned within 20 minutes, carrying their helmets filled with a clear liquid. It appears to be water, Tilara reported, though with a higher mineral content than Earth standard. Potable, but I would recommend minimal consumption. Maya nodded. Good work. How's that heat source coming, Volox? The Kintaran engineer had gathered a pile of the few scrubby plants they'd found, along with several cubes. These plants contain a resinous substance that should burn, but ignition is the challenge. Our emergency equipment doesn't include conventional fire starters. The third and final sun was now barely visible above the horizon. The temperature had dropped to the point where even speech was becoming difficult, breath freezing almost instantly. What about the power cells? Maya asked, her mind working through possibilities. If they contain energy. Volox's fur bristled with excitement. Yes, if I could activate just one, the energy release might be sufficient to ignite the resin. He examined the cube again, frustration evident. But the activation mechanism eludes me. Maya took one of the cubes, turning it over in her gloved hands. Its surface was smooth, without obvious controls or interfaces. She remembered something from her academy days, a lecture on theoretical xenotechnology. What if it's not meant to be activated mechanically? She suggested. The Arcovians communicated telepathically with us on the station. Tilara's antennae stiffened. You suggest a psycho-responsive technology. That would be extremely advanced. Worth trying, Maya said, removing her glove despite the cold. She placed the cube against her bare skin and closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts on warmth, on energy, on the need for heat. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then the cube began to warm, its surface glowing faintly. Lines of light appeared, tracing complex patterns across its faces. It's working, Volox exclaimed, quickly positioning the cube among the resinous plants. The cube's glow intensified until it was almost painful to look at directly. Suddenly, a concentrated beam of energy shot from one face, igniting the plant material instantly. Flames leaped upward, casting dancing shadows across the rock face behind them. Well done, Commander, Tilara acknowledged, her normally stoic expression betraying a hint of surprise. Human intuition strikes again. Resnick grinned, already gathering more fuel for their fire. With a heat source established, they worked quickly to improve their shelter. Additional thermal blankets were arranged to reflect heat back from the flames. Volox discovered that by mentally programming the cubes, they could be made to emit steady heat without consumable fuel, a much more efficient solution than burning the scarce vegetation. As the team huddled around their makeshift camp, the final sliver of sunlight disappeared, plunging the landscape into darkness broken only by their fire and the faint glow of activated cubes. The temperature continued to drop, but within their improvised shelter, they remained relatively comfortable. This first challenge seemed straightforward enough, Resnick observed, warming his hands. Survive the night. I suspect it's not quite that simple, Tilara countered. The Arcovians described this as a test of both survival and innovation. We've demonstrated basic survival skills, but perhaps they're watching for more. Maya nodded, surveying their camp. Tilara's right. We're not just being tested on whether we can stay alive, but how we do it. She picked up one of the activated cubes, studying its glowing patterns. These aren't just power sources. I think they're tools, multifunctional ones. She closed her eyes again, concentrating not on heat this time, but on protection, on shelter. The cube's pattern shifted, the light changing from orange to blue. Slowly, it rose from her palm, hovering in the air, then moved toward the edge of their overhang. There it expanded, not physically, but its energy field grew, forming a translucent barrier that sealed the opening of their shelter. Remarkable, breathed Dr. Nema, reaching out to touch the energy field. It's permeable to air, but blocks the wind completely. Volox was already experimenting with another cube. Under his mental direction, It projected a detailed topographical map of their surroundings. "Commander, look. We can use these to scout and plan without leaving shelter." Through the night, they discovered more functions. The cubes could purify water, analyze material composition, boost communication signals, and even synthesize basic nutrients from raw minerals. By dawn, a process that involved the sequential rising of all three suns, they had transformed their basic camp into a functional outpost. Maya stepped outside as the first rays of light crested the mountains, stretching muscles stiff from the cold night. The landscape looked different in daylight, still harsh, but with a stark beauty to its crystalline formations and deep shadows. "Commander," called T. Lara, who had been monitoring a cube they'd programmed as a sensor, "I'm detecting a new energy signature, approximately 1 kilometer north." They packed their improvised gear and moved out. Following T. Lara's directions, the terrain became increasingly difficult, with sharp rock formations that cut through their boots and narrow passages that forced them to proceed in single file. Eventually, they reached a small plateau. In its center stood a pillar of the same material as the station, pulsing with inner light. As they approached, the projection they'd met aboard the station appeared. "You have completed the first trial," it announced. "You demonstrated not merely survival, but adaptation and innovation. The ability to intuitively interface with unknown technology is unexpected." "We're full of surprises," Maya replied. "What's next?" "The second trial tests your problem-solving abilities under pressure. You must repair this relay station before the next sunset, approximately 6 hours from now. Failure will result in a planetary defense system activating, which will perceive your vessel as a threat." The projection gestured, and the rock beneath them became transparent, revealing a complex machine extending deep underground. Parts of it glowed brightly, others were dark or flickering. "The necessary components are available," the projection continued, "but they require assembly and integration. This technology is significantly more advanced than what your Confederation currently employs." Maya exchanged glances with her team. This would push even Volox's considerable engineering skills to their limits. "And the purpose of this trial?" she asked. "To determine whether you can comprehend and adapt to concepts beyond your current scientific understanding. Knowledge cannot be shared with those unprepared to receive it." With that, the projection vanished, leaving them staring at the exposed machinery beneath their feet. "Well," said Volox, his expression a mixture of trepidation and excitement as he studied the alien technology, "it seems we've graduated from camping to advanced engineering. Shall we begin?" Ingenuity under pressure. The relay station's internal components glowed with an otherworldly light, patterns shifting and flowing like liquid circuitry. Volox circled the exposed machinery, his specialized engineer's visor collecting data, while his clawed hands hovered inches above the surface, afraid to touch anything prematurely. "This technology, it's unlike anything in Confederation records," he murmured, voice tinged with equal parts frustration and wonder. T. Lara knelt beside a particularly complex node, her crystalline fingers extended toward it. The operation principles appear to combine quantum entanglement with biological processing units. Fascinating. Maya watched her specialist's work, recognizing the intellectual challenge before them. This wasn't just advanced technology. It operated on principles that might fundamentally contradict what they understood about physics. "How long would it take to understand this system under normal circumstances?" she asked. Volox barked a laugh, the Kintaran equivalent of a snort. "Months. Years? A dedicated research team might need a decade." "We have 6 hours," Maya reminded them. "Let's focus on what we can observe rather than what we don't understand. What's actually broken?" T. Lara pointed to several darkened sections. "These nodes are inactive. The energy flow is interrupted at these junctions. Could we bypass them?" Resnick suggested. "In field operations, sometimes a direct route works better than trying to restore a complex system." Volox shook his massive head. "This isn't like rewiring a shuttle. These components aren't just connected. They're interdependent. Change one thing, and the whole system reconfigures. Maya frowned, studying the machinery. Something about its design seemed oddly familiar, despite its advanced nature. The way the light flowed through the circuits reminded her of something. "It's like a neural network," she said suddenly. "Not a mechanical system, but something closer to a brain." Tilara's antennae twitched with interest. "That would align with what we've observed of Arcovian technology, the integration of consciousness and machinery. So we're not fixing an engine," Maya continued, excitement building as the concept solidified in her mind. "We're healing an organism." Dr. Nima moved forward, suddenly more engaged. The aqualid physician's translucent fingers spread wide as he surveyed the system with new understanding. "If that's true, then conventional repair approaches would be inappropriate. We need to think in terms of trauma response, regeneration, symbiosis." The team recalibrated their approach. Instead of attempting to understand every aspect of the technology, they focused on the patterns of energy flow, where it strengthened, where it weakened, how it responded to proximity. Maya retrieved several of the cubes they'd collected from the previous trial. "These interface with our thoughts. If this relay station operates on similar principles." She placed a cube near one of the darkened nodes and concentrated, not on specific commands this time, but on concepts: healing, connection, restoration. The cube glowed brightly, and for a moment, the node flickered to life before darkening again. It responded. Volox exclaimed, "But the connection's not stable." "We need more power," Tilara observed. "A single cube doesn't contain sufficient energy." Maya considered their resources. "What if we combined the cubes? Not physically, but connected them through our thoughts." They arranged 7 cubes in a pattern that mirrored the relay's central configuration. Each team member placed their hands on one, while Maya positioned herself at the center of their circle, touching the primary node directly. "Focus on integration," she instructed. "Not just repair, but harmony, making these systems work together." They concentrated in unison, an unprecedented melding of different species' cognitive patterns. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the cubes began to pulse in synchronization, their light flowing between them like liquid. Slowly, the darkened sections of the relay stirred to life. Energy patterns shifted, reorganizing themselves into new configurations. Parts that had seemed broken moved, folded, transformed into different components entirely. "It's adapting," Tilara whispered, her normally composed voice tinged with awe. "The system is rebuilding itself according to our combined mental template." The process continued for nearly an hour, the team maintaining their focus despite growing mental fatigue. Finally, the relay station emitted a deep resonant tone, and all its components glowed with steady light. Maya released her connection to the system, stepping back on shaky legs. "Status." Volox ran a scan. "All systems functional, Commander. Energy output stable and rising." "We did it." Resnick grinned, exhaustion evident on his face. "Not quite," Tilara corrected, pointing to a new formation that had emerged from the center of the relay. "This appears to be an interface terminal of some kind." The new component resembled a crystalline pillar, its surface covered in shifting symbols. As they watched, the symbols arranged themselves into recognizable Confederation standard script. "Connection estabilized. Primary function restored. Secondary systems require calibration." "Secondary systems?" Dr. Nima questioned. Maya approached the terminal cautiously. "What secondary systems need calibration?" The symbols shifted again. "Planetary defense, network, orbital shield generators, atmospheric regulation matrix." "That's significantly more than repairing one relay station," Volox observed dryly. Maya checked the time. They had just under 4 hours remaining before the deadline. "Can these systems be calibrated remotely through this terminal?" "Yes. However, calibration requires Specific paradigms unknown to this system. In other words, Resnick translated, we need to figure out the right settings ourselves. Maya considered their options. Tilara, what do we know about this moon? Its natural state, before Arcovian modification. The science officer consulted her scanner. Based on geological evidence, it was likely a barren rock with minimal atmosphere. Current conditions show significant terraforming. Atmospheric composition maintained within narrow parameters, energy shield protecting from stellar radiation, temperature regulation systems. So these systems aren't just defenses, Maya concluded. They're life support for the entire moon. That would explain the urgency, Dr. Nima added. If these systems fail completely, this environment becomes uninhabitable. Maya turned back to the terminal. Can you display current system status versus optimal parameters? The terminal produced a complex three-dimensional projection showing dozens of interlocking systems, most operating well below efficiency thresholds. This is overwhelming, Volox admitted, studying the display. Each system affects all others. Adjusting one incorrectly could cascade through the entire network. Maya stared at the projection, the complexity momentarily freezing her thoughts. Their specialized knowledge seemed inadequate for the task. Then she remembered something from her early days at the academy, a lesson not in science or engineering, but in leadership. We're overthinking this, she said finally. Look at what the Arcovians have done. They've created systems that respond to intention, not just instruction. I don't think they expect us to understand all of this. They want to see if we can adapt to their approach. She closed her eyes, placing both hands on the terminal. Everyone, join me. Don't focus on the technical details. Think about balance, harmony, restoration. Think about what this moon should be. One by one, her team members joined her, each placing their hands on the terminal. As they concentrated, the projection began to shift, systems realigning as if guided by an invisible hand. Warning indicators faded, replaced by steady rhythmic pulses. Above them, the sky changed color, the harsh violet softening to a more natural blue. The air seemed fresher, easier to breathe. In the distance, they could see cloud formations developing where none had existed before. After nearly an hour of mental connection, the terminal emitted a series of harmonic tones. The projection showed all systems operating at optimal levels. Calibration complete. Life support systems at 98.7% efficiency. Defense networks active, but PASIV. Confederation vessel recognized as friendly. Maya released her grip on the terminal, swaying slightly from the mental exertion. We did it. As if in response to her words, the projection of the Arcovian appeared before them once more. The second trial is complete, it announced. You have demonstrated not only technical adaptation but cognitive flexibility. Your approach was unexpected. That seems to be becoming a theme, Maya replied. We tend to find solutions outside conventional parameters. Indeed, most species attempt to understand our technology through their existing scientific frameworks. You chose instead to adapt yourselves to our principles. The projection flickered slightly. This quality is valuable. And the final trial? Maya asked, aware that her team needed rest but unwilling to delay. The third trial will test your ethical framework and decision-making capabilities. It awaits you at the coordinates now being transmitted to your communication devices. The projection vanished, leaving behind a sense of accomplishment tinged with apprehension. They had overcome 2 challenges through creativity and teamwork, but ethics tests were notoriously subjective. Let's move out, Maya ordered after allowing her team a brief rest and water break. I have a feeling the final challenge will be the most demanding yet. As they followed the coordinates toward a distant mountain range, the transformed environment around them bloomed with new life. Small plants pushed through previously barren soil, and the air filled with flying creatures that resembled iridescent dragonflies. We did this, Dr. Nima observed, watching the life flourishing around them. By balancing the systems, we accelerated the terraforming process. Lara scanned the new growth with obvious scientific interest. The Arcovians created an entire self-sustaining ecosystem, held in stasis until properly activated. The implications for planetary engineering are extraordinary. Maya nodded, but her mind was already focused on what lay ahead. The final trial would test their values, their judgment, the core of what made them who they were. And somehow, she suspected that technical skills and innovation wouldn't be enough this time. Crisis point. The mountain loomed before them, its peak wreathed in swirling clouds that hadn't existed hours earlier. The regenerated atmospheric systems had transformed the moon's weather patterns with remarkable speed, bringing moisture and wind where before there had been only static, frigid air. Maya checked her communications device. The coordinates point to a location inside the mountain. There must be an entrance somewhere. They circled the base, Resnick taking point with his security training. Eventually, they discovered a narrow fissure in the rock face, barely wide enough for them to pass through single file. "I don't like this," Resnick muttered, peering into the darkness. "Perfect location for an ambush." "I believe that's partially the point," Lara observed. "A test of trust and risk assessment." Maya activated the illumination function on one of their remaining cubes. "Stay alert, but remember, these trials have been challenging but not lethal. Let's proceed." The passage wound deep into the mountain, occasionally widening into small chambers before narrowing again. The air grew warmer and more humid as they progressed. After nearly 30 minutes of careful movement, they emerged into a vast cavern that took their breath away. The space extended far beyond the range of their lights, its ceiling lost in darkness. But what commanded their attention was the structure at its center. A translucent dome containing what appeared to be a small ecosystem. Within it, unfamiliar plants and small creatures moved about in a self-contained environment. Surrounding the dome were 7 pedestals, each bearing a crystalline control interface. As they approached, the Arcovian projection manifested once more. "You have reached the site of your final trial," it announced. "What you see before you is a complete biological archive, containing genetic samples of every species that evolved on this moon before its atmosphere degraded naturally, millions of years ago." Maya studied the dome with new appreciation. "You preserved them all." Preservation and restoration are fundamental principles of Arcovian philosophy. This archive contains the potential to fully restore this moon's original biodiversity. However, the system is unstable. The recent reactivation of planetary systems has created an energetic imbalance that threatens the archive's integrity. The projection gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing energy levels rising toward critical thresholds. "Your final trial is this. You must stabilize the archive, but the solution requires sacrifice. The available power is insufficient to maintain both the archive and the planetary systems you reactivated. You must choose what to preserve." Maya frowned. "What exactly are our options?" Option 1. Divert power from the planetary terraforming system to the archive. This will preserve all genetic material but revert the moon to its previous inhospitable state. Your vessel will need to evacuate immediately. Option 2. Preserve the revitalized planetary environment, but allow the archive to fail. The emerging ecosystem will continue to develop, but thousands of extinct species will be lost forever. Option 3. Attempt a partial preservation by selecting which species survive. The interfaces before you allow for such selection. The team exchanged troubled glances. "How much time do we have?" Maya asked. "The system will reach critical failure in 1 hour. Your decision must be implemented before then." With that, the projection vanished, leaving them alone with an impossible choice. "This is absurd," Resnick protested immediately. "They're asking us to play God with an entire ecosystem." "I believe that's precisely the point of the trial," Lara replied. "To evaluate our decision-making process when confronted with an ethical dilemma without an optimal solution." Volox moved to examine one of the control interfaces. The technical parameters appear straightforward. We can implement any of the three options relatively easily. The question is which one? Option 2 seems most practical, Resnick argued. The environment is already transforming. Why sacrifice that for preserved DNA of species long gone? But those species represent irreplaceable biodiversity, Dr. Nima countered. As a physician, I understand the immense value of genetic diversity. These samples could contain adaptations and evolutionary solutions that might benefit countless worlds. Maya listened to her team debate, each bringing valid perspectives from their disciplines and cultural backgrounds. The Arcovians had crafted a test with no technically correct answer. It was about values, priorities, and vision. She studied the dome more carefully, noticing details they had missed in their initial assessment. The creatures inside weren't merely preserved samples. They were living specimens in a carefully maintained environment. Some resembled tiny reptiles, others small mammals with iridescent fur. Plant life ranged from moss-like growths to complex flowering structures. "Wait," she said suddenly, interrupting the ongoing debate. "I think we're missing something. Look at the layout of this cavern, the way the rock formations channel energy. This entire mountain is part of the system." Tilara followed her gaze, then quickly scanned the surroundings. "You're correct, Commander. There are energy conduits throughout the cavern walls, connecting to the planetary grid outside." "Is it possible," Maya suggested, "that the Arcovians built redundancy into their systems? They clearly value preservation above all else. Would they really create a scenario where preservation must be sacrificed?" Volox's eyes widened with understanding. "You think there's a fourth option they haven't told us about?" "Exactly. The obvious choices force us to prioritize either present life or potential future life. But what if we could find a solution that preserves both?" The team rallied around this new possibility, bringing their diverse expertise to bear on the problem. Tilara and Volox analyzed the energy systems, tracing power flows and identifying potential untapped resources. Dr. Nima examined the biological requirements of the archive, calculating minimum sustainability thresholds. "Commander," Tilara reported after intense investigation, "there appears to be a geothermal energy tap extending deep beneath."